She would have special outfits just to give him extra challenge when he wants to get to the house. Rebbitzin, we're so sorry. We love the And so finally the Rav says to my grandfather, let's go to a board meeting. Let's go and go check out a meeting at Olei Torah. So he brings my grandfather to the meeting, and the normal board meeting. Rabbi said, we have no money. Where are we going to pay the bills? How are we going to get through the month? How are we going to get through the week? So they asked, any one of the parents, does anybody want to write a check? And nobody raises their hand. So they turn to my grandfather, and he looks at Rabbi Lipskar. He says, Sholom, the parents don't want to pay for their own kids' school. Why should I pay for their school if they're not going to pay themselves? He says, my kids will never go here. Well, that's what he thought. So Rabbi Lipskar brought him to meet the Rebbe. And the Rebbe asked my grandfather, how are you? And my grandfather said, well, thank God, health, business is flourishing. He says, Rabbi, how are you? And the Rebbe said, I'm having a hard day. Not expecting that, my grandfather asked him, what's wrong? And he said, Mr. Landow, there's only one school that the Yiddish kids could be able to learn in Miami. And if that closes down, they'll have nowhere to go. He said, Mr. Landow, the purpose of two Jews getting together is to talk about how they could help the third Jew who's not with them. It's like a nevuah. So my grandfather's thinking, the third Jew, that school, he's making the connection, but there was still a block. The Rebbe calls up Rabbi Lipskar, which was the story that they wrote. Your side of the story, I have a different side of the story, our family also, but it's all the same story. And he says that the Rebbe is going to pray by the oil, and he says you have to put tefillin by Mordechai Shol. You got to put on tefillin to him. And it has to be a nice pair. And back then, there was not all of the Torah stores that there are today. Rabbi Lipskar asked her, where am I going to get a nice pair? And Rav Groner said, if the Rebbe said put on a nice pair, give him your pair. So Rabbi Lipskar took the nicest bag that he had. He put his own pair of tefillin. And he brought it to my grandfather's house. And he knocks on the door. And my grandfather tells him, I'm not putting on those tefillin. And Rabbi Lipskar said what the Rebbe said. He said, but I don't want to do it. He says, listen, I'm going to stay here until you put them on. So why don't we just make this easier on both of us? Put them on, let's have a l'chaim. My grandfather says, you know what, you're right. So they put on that pair of tefillin that day, and that changed something in my grandfather's heart. The largest gifts in Miami Federation in 1972 was $50,000. And that day, my grandfather started $1 million gift to them, what was called the Landow Yeshiva. If you want to know what a friend knows what you're missing, and he'll stay with you until he'll eventually get you there. The Rebbitzin said, impact. Well, what would have been, chas v'sholom, if we didn't have Rabbi Lipskar and Rebbitzin Lipskar in our lives? So my grandfather made probably hundreds of millions of dollars. And his first son intermarried. And his second son intermarried. And there's no future for Klal Yisrael within them. And his daughter would dress not tznius every time the rabbi would come to the house. But his daughter said, if my father gave that much money to Jewish education, at least it should be important that I should try to marry a Jew. And of course, that's my father who's standing in the corner. And from them, Baruch Hashem, 5 children, rabbis, rebbitzins, people involved in chesed, a shliach also. There would be nothing in our lives had we not met the rabbi and rebbitzin. Hundreds of thousands have come through the Landow Yeshiva. Just to close, because the rebbitzin asked me 5 minutes. What's the future of this relationship? So it's a story that I never had the opportunity to share, and I wish I did. But the story was about 8 years ago. I was involved in education, and I was asked if I would get involved and volunteer some time to help in a little Israeli school that was in a shopping center in Hallandale. And I didn't understand how Israeli things worked back then. So I said, sure, I'm happy to get involved. And they said, maybe you'll write a proposal of like what you would do. I'm like, oh, okay, sure, I'll write something up. And I gave it to them. And they flew in from Israel. And they said, Mazal Tov, Zachita. I said, what? Zachiti bama? And they said, Mazal Tov, you're going to take the school. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. They said, but all of the kids are going to go back to public schools. I said, that would be terrible, but I didn't build, this is not mine. And I said, please, all of the money will come every month from Israel. All you need to do is just make a little organization, a little seder. I'm like, really? That's all you need? So I accepted. So the first month, no money comes. Second month, also no money. Now, third month, no, it's not that no money came. It's that somehow all of the money that I had in the account for the school left the account. I said, now that's a chidush I never heard. Wow. Turns out there was some sort of lawsuit and we lost everything. I said, okay, very nice, very nice. So it's Erev Shabbos. I'm so farfallen. I said, I'm closing the school Monday. And I opened up that Friday night the book of letters from the Rebbe to my grandfather. And I opened up to the letter. I can't make this up because this is exactly how it happened. I opened up to the letter where my grandfather had already spoken to them about opening the yeshiva together and asked the Rebbe, what do we do when children cannot afford tuition? How do you run the balance sheet? The Rebbe wrote to my grandfather, balance sheets are important. But he said, a Yiddish neshama is priceless. And they don't have a place on the balance sheets. Every child must have a Jewish education. And I decided that not only will we not close that school, that I'll have to die before they take it away from us, before we send all those kids back to public schools. And Baruch Hashem, on the Shabbos that the Rav blessed us, it happened to be, that was the story that was actually written in the Parshat HaShavua. And just as a nice zichron, that now, the future, that school now is named the Landow Jewish Academy. That is the future of the Landow Yeshiva. All I can say is that to the Rebbetzin, to Zalman, I miss trading baseball cards with you, but, and to the Rav, our lives would never be the same if Hashem did not bless us to meet the Lipskar family.
We're now going to read 3 chapters from the